Whenever I see a new song, I'm like, oh, I'm really excited. But sometimes it's kind of difficult because I'm not really a fast learner. But like if I put my heart and soul to it, I will finish it. Once I learn how to play that song and get all the notes right and like that, I think I usually play it like everywhere. I've been so caught up in my job, didn't see what's going on, but now I know I'm better sleeping on my own, 'cause if you like the way you look that much, oh baby. Whenever I'm feeling low or something, I just listen to music in general, and then I'm singing to it, all happy like that, and then I totally forget and zone out all the problems in the world. If you think that I'm still holding on to something, you should go and love yourself.
Hello everybody, welcome. My name is Kelly Downey. I am the Executive Director of Musical Empowerment. We are a national nonprofit based here in the Triangle. What was that? What do we do at Musical Empowerment? I think I heard somebody ask. Thank you for asking. We give free music lessons and mentorship to kids in the neighborhood from marginalized communities. So we've been doing this for 20 years. We have 7 college campuses that we work with. Our volunteers are incredible, and we're so excited to be celebrating 20 years of service. Thank you for being here. This is the final event of our 3-part series, so we appreciate you. It is my great honor to introduce our moderator of the evening, our board chair, Shaun Andrews.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing tonight? Excellent, excellent. Well, we want to thank you for coming out tonight to our discussion around music and mental health. Who in here likes music? Who in here understands that mental health is an issue right now that we all need to address? Excellent. Well, you're in the right place tonight. You're in the right place. So tonight we have 4 amazing panelists who are in person, and we also have a pre-recorded interview from another amazing person. And so we're going to go in and we're going to start the discussion. And each of these individuals have different backgrounds. They have varied basic knowledge. And so we're going to give you guys some information tonight to take home and hopefully just live a little bit better. So first, we're going to start with Dr. Flavio. And I'm going to read his bio. So Dr. Flavio Frohlich is a neuroscientist at UNC and received a master's degree in electrical engineering at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich, an international diploma in electrical engineering at the Imperial College in London, and his PhD in computational neurobiology at UC San Diego. He completed a postdoctoral fellowship at Yale University, where he made the breakthrough discovery that the electric fields generated by the brain represented an active neural communication mode. In 2011, Flavio moved to UNC to translate this discovery into novel therapeutic strategies for disorders of the brain. Flavio founded and recently sold Pulvinar Neuro, a medical device company that develops targeted brain simulation for the treatment of mental illness. Flavio, thank you so much for joining us. And so Flavio, really quick, have you played any instruments or created any music in your life?
I have been playing the cello for a long time, but you can be very grateful that Joyu will be playing the cello tonight and not me. That's all I say.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you again. So now I would like to introduce Soteria Shepperson. She is a woman of color who identifies as espresso, living and thriving as an artivist. If you guys didn't know, that's an artist and activist. And she's a motivational speaker, songwriter, performer, culture shifter, and sustainer. She is a 2022 TEDx High Point speaker, also known as I Am Soteria. Her work centers purpose not in what one is able to do, but in what one has been born to become. That's powerful. She challenges stereotypes of colorism, sexism, racism, and stigmas of criminality that she witnessed in her life and through the experiences that have been lived by others, inviting herself and others to be the heroes they've been waiting for. Soteria has shared her work internationally for nonprofits, in corporate arenas, schools, prisons, at conferences, and here at the Carolina Theater, and notably for the International Civil Rights Museum and the 2019-2020 Women's March in Raleigh. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Soteria Shepperson. And so, same question to you. Do you play any instruments, and have you created any music in your life?
Air guitar, baby.
Air guitar? A little bit of singing, a little bit of...
Yeah, a little bit of singing too. You know, that shower singing is good for everybody.
Yeah, okay, cool. I have a smooth shower baritone myself. All right, so next we have Pamela Harkin. Pamela is a middle school and high school counselor at Eno River Academy in Hillsborough. She previously served as the head of school and lead academic counselor at Northern High School in Durham. Pamela graduated from UNC Chapel Hill in 2007 with a BS in psychology, then worked in Raleigh for a startup online counseling company. She earned her master's in education in school counseling from UNC Chapel Hill in 2013. During her programs, Pamela focused on studying adolescent mental health disorders, including conducting research into eating disorders and technology addiction. Pamela's passion is her students, so her current position, supporting children as they navigate the preteen and teenage years, is the most fulfilling work of all. Ladies and gentlemen, Pamela. Same question, Pamela. Have you played any music, or are you musically inclined?
I grew up taking piano lessons,
Okay.
And then once we got to the recital phase, the piano lessons stopped.
Okay.
And so the piano is now a more informal passion, I would call it.
So no special performance from you later on?
No. No, you're welcome.
All right. So I would like to introduce our panelist, Gabby Kansing, who is not here with us today in person, but we will be hearing from her a little later in the program via a pre-recorded video. So Gabbie is a mental health counselor, limited permit at Clarkson University in Potsdam, New York, and a former musical empowerment mentor and teacher relations leader at North Carolina State University. She received her bachelor's degree in psychology from NC State University in 2020. She is also a pre-K counselor at the 2019 Summer Treatment Program, which focuses on behavioral intervention and research for children with ADHD through the Center for Children and Families at Florida International University in Miami, Florida. Gabby recently received her master's degree in mental health counseling from SUNY Buffalo in Buffalo, New York. She served as a research assistant for the FIU Center for Children and Families of Western New York and Buffalo, which focuses on research for children with ADHD. Ladies and gentlemen, Gabby. And last but certainly not least, we have Ms. Joyu Lee. Joyu is a music therapist and the owner of Music and Your Mind, a founding member of Vita Strings. Joyu has 20 plus years of combined international experience in cello performance, music education, creative expressive arts therapy, and arts administration. Since 2018, she has facilitated trauma-informed teaching and mindfulness workshops across the country. Joyu completed her music therapy degree from Appalachian State University in Boone and has been a board-certified music therapist since 2014. She received a bachelor's in cello performance from the National Taiwan Normal University and received a special honors award with a master's in cello performance from the Cleveland Institute of Music in Ohio. Thanks for joining us, Joyu, and we're happy to have you. And we have a special treat. Joyu is going to lead the audience in a mindfulness exercise.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to tune my cello really quickly before we get started. Sounds okay?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to open up tonight with a little experience. I'm going to invite you to be part of this music listening. My guess is many of you have attended live concerts here, there, and everywhere, and now that we are transitioning out of COVID and performing arts are slowly and surely coming back, it's so wonderful to be in the same space and sharing music with y'all. And so if we think about mindfulness, it is truly an invitation for yourself to pay attention to you right here, right now. So I'm gonna invite you, if you wanna like do a gentle stretch, maybe shake things out, just really check in for a couple seconds, just noticing it's a Tuesday evening. We're transitioning into the beginning of fall, the busyness of school, with work, with daily routines. We're so grateful that you're here in person, carving out this time for you. And so I'm gonna invite you to just start noticing your breath. We're not changing anything. We're just noticing that sense of when you're breathing in, how fast or slow your breath might be moving. Maybe this is the first time today that you took a moment to just check in with yourself. And just notice when you're breathing out, like letting your breath go. How is that like for you? So together, I invite you to just take a breath in, breathing in gently. It doesn't have to be a very full breath. You're just bringing the sense of easiness in. And as you breathe out, letting your breath go, just letting your breath move a little bit slower, a little bit lower, releasing. And the piece that I will be playing and inviting you to be in this listening experience is written by Bach. It's from his first cello suite, and it is titled The Prelude as the opening. Yo-Yo Ma, who is one of the most famous performers in the world, who does a lot of experiences and explorations in music, has once collaborated with these architectures and designed a whole garden based on this piece of music. And so if you feel like just gently closing your eyes, or just sit back in your chair and give yourself this time for the music to take you wherever you need to be, right here, right now. And as the music comes to a pausing point, allow yourself to wrap up this experience and just check in. What has come to your space right now? Maybe something has shifted. Maybe allow the music to give you a sense of breath, maybe a little bit of relaxation, or just bring more to the present connection. So thank you so much for being here.
All right, so again, thank you, and we'll jump right into it. So, Flavio, we'll start with you. Can you please tell us what inspired you to shift from your studies of electrical engineering to studying the brain?
Oh, wow. The brain is also an electric system, so maybe the switch wasn't that big. I think it was how humbling the complexity of the real thing is that with engineering we try to mimic and model, and realizing that there's so much more we need to understand. Engineering is problem solving, which is great, which I enjoyed. Neuroscience has said if the brain is discovery of the unknown, trying to unravel the big mysteries, making big discoveries. That's what I thought when I was 20, when I changed fields. Now it's grant writings and things like that more so. But jokes besides, I think it's the big mystery. Plus, my sister studies astrophysics, so I have to kind of compete with that. So that's how I ended up in neuroscience.
Excellent, thank you. So, Joyu, in your practice, you utilize two approaches: music care sessions and the Helen Bonny method guided imagery, and music GIM psychotherapy.
Yes.
Can you please give us a brief example of these two approaches and when you would use one versus the other?
Absolutely. The experience that we just participated together is truly inspired by the Bonny method. And Dr. Helen Bonny was a music therapist and did a lot of groundbreaking research in the 70s that started with combining music with LSD in the Maryland psychiatric facility. However, during her research, she has truly discovered that music itself is a legal high, and a lot of people go into these really powerful experiences without using any sort of substance, and it's really about setting your intention and being more mindful of how you can go into these more focused states and connect those experiences from music to the things that you're dealing with in your day-to-day, and how can we declutter and find more clarity in the meaning of your life and purposes and reestablishing goals and objectives. So that's the short version of what the Bonny method, guided imagery and music practices. There are definitely a lot of ways that we can utilize this information and develop different interventions. For instance, the really music-focused relaxations, using music and arts, music and movement, and the music care sessions. And the reason why it's titled Care is about caring for yourself and caring for others. And this could be broadened into, let's say, improvisation, using songwriting and narratives, storytelling, and different ways of finding your voice in music practice.
Thank you. All right, Soteria, how does music and poetry play a part in your work?
So I did not always do music with the poetry. I started off writing, and my mom was a single parent, and for us, therapy was not even in the conversation. I think therapy has become more of a phenomenon right now, and so music was free. You know, I grew up in the old Southern Black church, and if you know anything about Black church, the music is the bomb, and you're in there probably 29 hours out of the day because it never ends. And so growing up, I tried to start rapping at first because, again, like if you're talking about Black culture, I'm a first generation college graduate, and so I just remember my brothers rapping, and you got Run DMC, Tupac, like all this stuff, so I'm trying to rap. And I realized like not every black person can clap and do this at the same time. And I literally thought that came naturally because I was black. And so then people were like, no, honey, you got to pick a struggle. And so I picked poetry. And I do this event now called I Am Soteria and Friends. And I remember having this really big event and my friend calling away. And they're like, I can't come. And I had their name on the program. And so ever since then, it just happened that I called it I Am Soteria and Friends, because whoever shows up, then I can say they're my friends. So, but where I really started singing was realizing the power that I had in my own voice. And when I was in some of my darkest places, I would go back and listen to my poetry. And to me, that was more powerful to remember myself in that moment than to hear someone else empower me from their own voice. And so part of my work is taking what people say and reminding them that, you know, essentially, again, you are the hero you've been waiting for.
Wow, that's amazing. Excellent. So, Pamela, why was psychology the career path that you chose?
So for a lot of reasons, but there is one moment that really stands out to me where I remember I just was hooked. And it was in my high school psychology class. And our teacher came in one day and said, we're gonna take an intelligence test. And I was good at school. I was very excited by this. I thought this was gonna be great. I'm like, I'm gonna get a high score. Like, and this test comes in front of me and I don't know any of the answers on it. It's asking things about wallabies and, you know, just how do you survive and such. And we all failed the test. And then he revealed at the end of it, this is not a test for an American white student. This is a test for someone living in Australia. And just that moment of intelligence doesn't come in a box. And I work in schools now, I love education, but it was just that moment of sitting in a classroom where your world just shifts completely upside down. And like I said, from there, I was hooked. I knew what I was gonna do.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Flavio, can you please give us an example of how music can be used to help someone, Joyu, excuse me, sorry. I know you're getting scared. Joyu, can you please give us an example of how music can be used to help someone with an eating disorder?
Absolutely. So I work in the inpatient eating disorder unit at UNC ever since the pandemic, and I would say that a lot of the people that I encounter in the inpatient setting, they are in really severe health conditions that their body is shutting down, and who they are as a person is truly falling apart. And so a lot of times when I'm working with people in the state that they may feel that everything in their world is wrong. They can't think clearly because of all of their medical conditions. They are going through this process of restoration and rebuilding their body and getting the nutrients that they're really needing. But that sense of identity is also being challenged in a very dramatic way from every single perspective. So me as a music therapist coming into these spaces oftentimes is to encourage the person to, first of all, most people like music. If they don't like music, we could also talk about other things that they're interested in. So I never make the assumptions that music is like the way to go, but I would like to think that most people find music very helpful. So a lot of times it's really about what music do you like? And thinking about that, why is this the music that helps you build connection? Whether it's a memory in the past when a lot of my clients will say that, you know, this is something that I used to listen to when I was younger and I didn't have anything I needed to worry about. Or maybe this is the music that my grandparents really liked. Or maybe this is the music that I listened to in the car going to school, or when I was at school, I didn't have any friends, so I just listened to my music all day long because my music validated me. So a lot of times I would approach this from a place that, how is the person using their music prior to coming to the hospital, prior to experiencing an eating disorder or any sort of mental health crisis, and really using that almost like a leverage point to support the person to explore different information. That sense of who they are, what is important to them, what do they not like, what is helping them feel different things or soothe certain emotions. And so this is something that is really interesting when you talk to people about their music, because they might even be surprised if they've never thought of their music that way, except for, I just really like listening to music. And so it's a great conversation starter of diving deep of what do you notice about your music.
Do you see a correlation between certain types of music and certain moods?
Yes. Music is about patterns, and I don't want to overgeneralize a lot of things, but I have a lot of people who tell me that I just like listening to a lot of sad music. So then I'll ask them, what is your definition of sad music? Tell me more. This is a phrase therapists love plugging in here and there, because it's truly opening up about what they are noticing, whether it is the artist itself, whether it's the genres, whether it's the instrumentation, whether it's the tempo of the music itself. And how does that connect to the person and situation? So if I am really nerdy and track everything, which I have done in various situations, and you will notice that there are certain correlations. So let's say that there are points when music is matching the mood, but music has the possibility of shifting. Mm-hmm. So I like to use this metaphor. It's almost like when you play a song, it's like you're walking into the room, and the song sets the tone of the interior design, every single detail of the room, the temperature, the humidity, the paint color, the comfort items, where the furniture is. And sometimes when you are listening to music that really validates your feeling, that could be deep sadness or despair, you feel that your music gets you. You feel connection, you feel validated. But if you are in that space for too long, you also recognize that maybe this is not the most helpful thing for me to ruminate or linger or stay in this space where you might be curious to see, maybe I want to change the scenery of this room. And so sometimes when the music is changed and you're in the same room, but there's a possibility that maybe it opens up truly a tiny bit of the window and then you let in some fresh air. Maybe the room was completely dark, and I'm using metaphors, of course. And you notice that, you could open the curtains a little bit. Or maybe the temperature goes from really cold to a little bit warmth. So sometimes using music to like change or shift your mood could be very surprising.
That's amazing. I remember when I played football in college, we had a special playlist we would play before games.
Yeah.
And when my girlfriend came over, I had a CD that I would play every time. There was never any gangster rap on there. So, Flavio, how has your work affected the way you see your own mind?
I think in a very profound, deep way. So going back to the absolute wonder, right? I mean, we understand so little about the brain, and we're so busy, and there's so many people studying the brain, trying to find answers. And it's just really, it kind of positions you relative to everything around you and gives you an idea of scale, that we have this actually really small piece of tissue, right, that you can hold in your hands, if you metaphorically spoke, so to speak. And still, it creates so many things we don't understand, and we need to ultimately understand, as we must understand the biological basis of mental health challenges. There's an urgent imperative. It's not just the discovery process, the joyful discovery process. There's a strong and kind of urgent need to that. So, being able to face that and confront that does reflect back on who you are, and clearly did in my case. So for me, I started out with a very mechanical, or I should say electrical perspective of what the brain is, and the basis of the mind are the electric impulses that are going through your brains right now. And that was kind of the perspective I took, and it's a very successful perspective in terms of what it gives us for development of new treatments, for example, right? Because ultimately who we are and how we experience is the result of electric activity. And also, there is more to it than that. We still understand so little, and the crisis is so acute. So in my own experience, in my own professional journey, I started to understand that there are so many factors that make up an individual, so many systems around us that can constrain us and put us down, you know, and also systems that can lift us up, right? And capturing all that through the lens of electric impulses is incredibly hard. And I'm ready for the challenge, or I should say, my team is ready for the challenge, but we're missing something if we reduce it to that, right? And what we're missing is that we've built a society and we're living in a society that has been optimized and designed to put some people down and lift others up in a completely unjustified, unfair, irrational, devastating way. And we gotta face that, and yes, I specialize in electric impulses, but I feel this strong imperative to address that the mental health crisis is coming from somewhere. Yes, it's biological function that makes us feel down and robs us of motivation and that makes us hear things that are not here. Yes, but ultimately where this all comes from is by something we as the human species have built. And we, all of us, are somehow still contributing to maintaining it or making it worse instead of making it better. And I think so here is where the broader responsibility comes in, and with all the unearned privileges of a white man in academia, it is so vital that I make the step away and listen tonight, because we got to fundamentally change. And one last thought, I think the music is really one of the tools of true transformation. So I'm honored to be here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
You should clap again.
So Terry, that's a great segue. Can you tell us about how you connect art and music with social justice?
Yeah, so I did not travel out of the country until I was 30, which is way too late. And I remember crossing the street in Germany. And just in case you didn't know, they don't speak English in Germany, they speak German. In case you didn't know, you actually have to use coins to use the bathroom in Germany. And so I'm bartering with like a 12-year-old. Like, can I send you some cash out money? Because I need to go to the bathroom. All these things that I had no idea about traveling. And when you cross the street in America, do you know what color the man is when you cross the street? Anybody know? White. When you cross the street in Germany, you know what color the man is? Be quiet, Dr. Flavio. Who said it? Green. Who said green? These are my fake glasses. Where you at? Green. It's green. Do you know why it's green in other countries? Huh? Can I cuss? Green means freaking go. Exactly. So I was standing in the middle of the street, almost got hit by a car because the man turned green. I had never seen that before in my life. And so there are some subtle ways, I think, in America that we can infiltrate the system and the mind and the brain. So I only cross the street when the white man says go. Now, the hand is red because red means stop, right? And so it's these things that I started to see, and what I realized in Germany, even though the only German I know is Guten Tag, I think that means hi, if I'm still saying it right, I don't know. But I started singing and doing poetry in English, and people started crying. And that did something for me that nothing could have ever done. When we understand each other through language, that's one form of connection. But when we understand each other through music and body language and just looking out in the audience and seeing people cry, like I could have been singing "You're ugly, yes you are," but it was like such a beautiful impact. And I have been fortunate to travel the world, to be on stages that I don't even think my degree could have gotten me in because of myself as a musician. And if you think about as an artist, and I would say if you think about
where do you see the most diverse people? Concerts, right? It doesn't matter. Like, if we all like the concert, we're all there. And so part of my concerts are about bringing unlikely people together. And I'll look out and I'll see black people by white people, and white people who swear they hate black people till they meet my black people because they're pretty cool. And then my black people who scared of the white people, but I'm like, no, they're a good white person. And then it's like all the people of color in the middle, and it's like this beautiful, beautiful mosaic reunion of our humanity, and reminding us simply through lyrics of a song that we all belong right here on earth.
That's excellent.
Thank you.
So now we'll take a short pause and listen to Gabby. She's on our pre-recorded line, and we'll go ahead and play that now.
Being a musical empowerment mentor, teaching piano through musical empowerment at NC State was such a great experience, in my opinion, throughout my undergrad years. It was so nice to see my student on a weekly basis, so it was very consistent. Even throughout, as the pandemic started, seeing her virtually was nice to have that sort of stability, and I'm sure it was nice for her as well to kind of have someone constant through that, huge area of change throughout the world. Some skills that you kind of use as a musical empowerment mentor that translate into being a mental health counselor are skills of active listening, reflecting, and even being empathetic. Sometimes my student would talk about things in their day that might be bothering them, and just being able to be a listening ear was helpful for my student. So kind of building that one-on-one relationship with my student has helped me, in my career now, to build one-on-one therapeutic relationships with my client. And it's so interesting how the skills translate, because, I started as a musical empowerment mentor way before I knew that I wanted to go in the field of mental health counseling. So both experiences, it's just been such an invaluable place to pull from so that I can help my clients today. Even being part of the leadership team at Musical Empowerment at NC State has really helped me to work with the population that I currently work with, which is university students. So as a musical empowerment teacher relations leader, I was able to talk to other NC State students, kind of gauge where they're at, or, mitigate any, anxiety or fear about maybe, like being a teacher and teaching for the first time. So having that experience of working with, being able to recruit and work and manage the teachers that were part of our chapter has really helped me to understand and work with university students today through a mental health lens. I always find it so interesting when I talk about my experience of research with children with ADHD. I like to think that I never seeked out this sort of experience. It sort of found me and kept finding me. When I was a pre-K counselor at the summer treatment program in Miami, Florida, we never really focused on research of music, but, I could definitely tell that music had an impact. The other counselors and I would often use music or, like songs about whether it was using kindness as a muscle, whether it was blowing your nose and washing your hands, or even just remembering what the rules were of the camp was a very powerful tool to kind of help these kids remember. As counselors, one thing that we did at camp was taking a popular song at any time. At the time, Ariana Grande was super big, so we took the song and kind of wrote up our own lyrics, which were the rules of the camp, and we put it to the soundtrack of that song. And, we would sing it, whether it was going down the hallway, moving in between class to recess, and the kids loved it. They loved singing it. They loved dancing to it. But the part that really was just fascinating was how the song was able to help them remember those rules and being able to actively participate in those rules. music can be such a powerful way to get a message across. You know, as a kid, if you're going to hear the same message a million times over, it might not stick with you. But hearing a song and liking that song and listening to that song and singing that song and dancing to it, you know, that might provide a better opportunity for it to really, you know, for you to be able to process it and kind of take it. Being able to listen to music while you're studying, you know, whether to help with staying focused, to being attentive, or staying on task, is very true for university students, but it's also very true for children. In my time doing ADHD research in Buffalo, you know, my primary role was to observe kids within the classroom, and oftentimes if these kids were taking tests, or even just listening in class, being able to put on headphones, whether it was, you know, to take away that overstimulation of noise or even to listen to music while taking an exam, seemed to really bring their focus onto what they really needed to be doing. And I thought that was really fascinating to see.
Pamela, we're going to start off with you. You get a little intro. So, Pamela, what is your impression of how students' mental health is in our current climate? I'm going to add a little bit to that.
Sure.
How has technology impacted their mental health?
Oh, we were just talking a little bit about this before. So the thing that I have noticed and experienced about mental health, one was it's been really interesting being in this field before and after the pandemic, because I think before the pandemic it was starting to be a conversation, therapy was starting to be, and then after the pandemic everyone is worried about how is the mental health of the kids, how is the mental, you know, it's just brought the spotlight where it wasn't before. And everyone wants answers, and as quickly as possible, and solutions. And kind of the thing with mental health, especially with students struggling with mental health illnesses, is that there are no easy and quick answers. It's always a process. There's no one solution. And this pandemic has everyone wants to put it in a box, you know, like, okay, well, this is how the children feel coming out of the pandemic, and what we've just realized is there isn't a box. This is a new variable, this is a new layer. Some of the kids are fine. They were fine, they are still fine, and some of our kids, they really are not. And so my approach to mental health of students, and as it's always been, is I don't go in looking for solutions, I just go in looking to listen. I just want to hear and meet them where they are, and if they are not happy with where they are, you know, to try to take a step forward. But I'm going to answer that by saying, you know, there are no answers sometimes.
So, Flavio, what does the future of your work look like?
That's a wonderful question. I mean, I think the future of mental health research, especially the biological basis thereof, I think will be very different from what it is today, because we're coming to the end, I think, of a century of mental health research focused on finding the equivalent of penicillin for mental health disorders, right? So penicillin, as you all know, is this, or at least used to be, this wonderful drug. There was a deadly illness we couldn't control. We understood what caused it, and now we have this magic bullet to essentially eliminate the cause of the illness, and suddenly what used to be a deadly illness was no more, right? That is the paradigm medicine is built on, and that is what we're all looking for in terms of easy, quick solutions that make sense in terms of the causal order. You have a cause, you identify it, you have a test, you have one thing, and then it's fixed. And frankly, psychiatry and psychiatric research, which is more my field of expertise, I'm a researcher, has been focused on trying to find the equivalent for mental health disorders. And while this might have become a profitable approach, and while this definitely has helped a lot of people, it's also clear when we look today, the problem is worse than it was ever before. So continuing down the same avenue, following the same fallacy of finding the magic bullet, I predict will come to an end and I actually dare to say should come to an end, and I hope it does come to an end, because we got to find a more holistic approach. And this goes back to the wonder about the sophistication of the brain, or of brains in general, not just the human brain, and the incredible, unfathomable arrogance of us humans thinking something such complex as disordered mood states, or whatever example you want to take, can be fixed by a single chemical. Now I want to be very clear, these medications help a lot of people and they're a wonderful tool, but they're not the complete answer. So the responsibility that I feel as a researcher in terms of shaping the future of that field is to look for more integrated approaches, for more open-minded approaches that have rational scientific inquiry and levels of evidence as its core, but start with the wonderment and the openness to all the different things that we as humans can create and have experience and can potentially influence our mental health. And we should look everywhere, and we should try anything, and we should be open to the fact that every single patient will need something different. And it will not just be a chemical compound, it will not just be a specific form of electricity that I could talk to you for hours, because that's what we focus on and we're so excited about. And it will also not be one rigorous type of psychotherapy, and it will also not be one specific type of music intervention, and it will not be just one type of specific political activism to change the environment, but it needs to be a combination of all of that. And how we study that scientifically is incredibly hard, right? But we must be guided by scientific evidence, because so much abuse, terror, and oppression has been justified through means that surpass scientific ethics and scientific methods, right? We're talking here about vulnerable people in many different ways. So we got to find out how to take the rigorous scientific framework and translate it in a way that we can study this completely new, integrated, personalized approach to the treatment of mental health. That is what the future hopefully will look like. No more magic bullets, but an acknowledgement of the complexity and the requirement for all of us to work together to find better ways to help these people.
And one follow-up, are minorities being well represented in the research?
They're not at all, unfortunately. The reality is this, and I'm happy to share, and also sharing the responsibility. So we're developing new treatments, and we're running clinical trials. Right? Clinical trials, as you know, for example, in oncology is well established. You get a cancer diagnosis, hopefully not, but the statistics show that a lot of us will or already have. And you go to a place where there are trials where you get access to the new, still experimental treatments. In mental health, that understanding doesn't exist yet, and we have the barrier of stigma that comes in the way. So when we run ads for, we're looking for participants for clinical trials, a very small segment of the population shows up. And I understand why, because in the name of science and medicine, so much terror has been imposed on minoritized, marginalized communities, communities of color, and so on, that there is a big gap, and it's our responsibility to bridge that gap. It is important from an ethical, moral viewpoint that the people we study are representative of all of us, we the people, all of us. And it's also important from a strict medical viewpoint that the findings matter in any way in terms of practical implications. We gotta study the people whom we ultimately want to help with their health. And the reality is that representation is not there, and the reality is that people like me need to work harder and more to talk about this and to understand what the barriers are, that we have better representation in clinical trials. Because medicine has a history of marginalizing on purpose everyone who doesn't look like me. right? Women's health is a great example. Most medications have never properly been studied in women, right? And that is just one example of how medicine has been optimized for people who look like me and no one else. And the place to fix this, I believe, really is through participation in clinical trials, where we start to understand what the unique challenges are, how the different stories in terms of mental health patients bring, how that interacts with the kind of treatments that we're hoping to develop, that we develop and that we're evaluating. So I think that's a critical bottleneck. And in fact, all of you can contribute to that, right? Because it's a conversation about what does it mean to be in research and how does research need to change. That you, your friends, your family are comfortable that after the second antidepressant you're still not better, that you look up at what clinical trial you could be in, instead of try yet another antidepressant that statistically spoken will help very little, right? So broadening that conversation and getting people in and making the changes such that everyone is welcome, I think is huge in terms of what the future will look like. Thank you for asking this question.
Thank you.
Can I add to that? So I really appreciate what he's saying, and I think for me as a black woman, it's really important for me to have a relationship with doctors. And my partner is white, and I have been to the doctor, and I've had 5 surgeries. I may not look like it, but I feel like I'm 113 in my body. And the doctor is talking to me about drug addiction. And she's on the phone, and she's like, okay, so are you going to get her some pain medicine? And before he's about to walk out the door, and she's screaming, and I'm like, listen, she's white. I'm like, girl, I'm not about to go to prison because of you. Stop yelling. And so by the end of that conversation, he gives me pain medicine. Then he said for me to call the pain clinic. So I called the pain clinic. The woman, before she even speaks to me, she says to me, on the voicemail, I just want you to know we're not going to prescribe any medication. That's my first interaction with the pain clinic. And so as a black woman, there has been a lot of frustration around getting medical care because we know that a lot of the doctors are white men. And so you have that stereotype, and that has been very frustrating. My mother-in-law is a retired doctor, and some of the work that I do around advocacy is around bringing awareness to how underrepresented black women are. If you look at breast cancer, black women are 40% more likely to be diagnosed late, so we end up with stage 4 cancer when it could have been caught earlier. And so I would say we have to do better, but also I love it when people want to talk to me when I'm feeling great. You know, it's like if the only reason UNC wants to talk to me is because I'm dying, like, no thank you. You know, it's like, what about measuring health? What about measuring people that are living long? You know, those are the things that really help me build trust. And I will tell you, when I see white men like Dr. Flavio, like, I just don't know. Is he cool or do he hate me? Like, I don't know. You know, and he has been so warm and gentle and kind, and society has taught me that if I'm not careful, that can be abusive to me, right, when I go into an office. And so this powerfulness of like Black Girl Magic, it gets shut down, and you start to feel so vulnerable, like you don't matter, because you start to feel like a number and a statistic. And so to that, I would say we have to do more building relationship with each other. Because I got a whole lot of black people that would love to be in this study for a fee, by the way. Reparations, okay? But it's they clap. I got like, the white people clapping, you already know we good. And so I just feel like some of that too, when you look at when the clinical studies are happening, it's in the middle of the day. You know, the workforce, so if you're looking at who you're asking, the majority of my friends, I love them, they're older white people, they're retired. The black people, my mom and my partner's mom, they're baby boomers. My mom was still working for a $10 an hour job in her 70s, y'all. And so what she wanted to do, she couldn't do, because generational wealth goes backwards in black families and it goes forward in white families. So there's more research and time for you to figure out generationally what you can catch at the forefront to prevent sickness long term. That does not happen in black culture enough, in my opinion, and I think some of that is truly not just building a relationship in sickness, but also building a relationship in life. Just want to add
right, so Joyu, we're gonna come back to you. How does music help patients process grief?
Right now, my headspace is thinking a lot about these different situations that I see in my work at the hospital. Not just about grief, but grief and excuse me for a second. I'm like kind of like my brain's like buzzing in a lot of different spaces because truly, if I talk about grief, last week I did a presentation in an international conference. Actually, it was hosted in Denmark, and the beauty of Zoom is we can participate from all different corners in the world. And I've been diving deeply into some of the literature from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross to David Kessler to more of the recent grief work. And being able to give space for grief is potentially a privilege as well. Because as a Taiwanese identified, I've been living in the States for over half of my life, and if we talk about grief as part of mental health, and how mental health conversations, how are they being acknowledged in different spaces? A lot of times in Asian families, and my clients who are people of color, there's no space for grief. They don't even recognize that that actually is grief because the day-to-day survival, the day-to-day routine, the just making ends meet to care for not just your individual and your community, that is taking up all of their time and energy. And if we talk about loss, grief, loss, and transitions, and talking about generational grief, loss, and transitions, and there's a lot of great literature out there about emotional agility and about like the inheritance of this trauma and how when things are unspoken and there are no places to go, the body remembers everything and it carries through. And so that's kind of where from Flavio and all of our conversations here is leaving me with, I believe that a big part of my job as a music therapist, as from one human to another, is to encourage people to give permission for any feeling to take up space. And if you don't know what it is, that is okay. Even acknowledging that, wow, that is grief, I can grieve, I'm allowed to grieve. What do you mean by I can grieve? I have so much to do, I don't have any time and space for this. It's just the deeply listening and being present for each other. I think that is a very big first step of grief work, is to know that somebody genuinely cares about how you're feeling and that you can grieve and go through this in your own time and space. And bringing it back into music, it's truly your own tempo, the volume of things, the stimulation, how much silence you might need in this, your personal space, your personal boundaries. There's a lot to be explored.
You know, it's interesting. So I do a lot of work with young men in inner cities, and so, oh, sorry, I have a really smooth baritone voice, and so I have to. So I do a lot of work with young men in inner cities, and we hold trauma groups. I'm actually leaving here after the session, and I'm going to Kentucky because I hold sessions in Kentucky every week. And so the young men, there are 2 young men last week who lost their fathers 2 months ago due to violence, assassinations in broad daylight. And we asked them, have they cried? And they looked puzzled. They're like, no. And when we were mentioning that, it brought up, you know, what I experienced with young men in these high crime, violent, and young men and young women in these areas, and it's devastating. It's devastating. So again, thank you for that. So when we take in transitioning into, when we talk about students, has your connection, or in your experience, what is the relationship between school counselors and music teachers? Is there a connection?
There definitely is. I am also, can I add a little, I just feel,
Add away.
I can't turn away from it, right now. Like, but mostly just the biggest thing is providing space for students, and that's kind of what mattering and space are like the two words that have been kind of rolling around. A lot of the curriculum that I'm trying to build in the school I'm at right now is about mattering, and I feel like for a lot of students that has never been brought up, and then during the pandemic, definitely everything became about the world, and we kind of lost that individual conversation, that individual feeling, and it's almost like children need to be reminded, like, you matter so much, and you can take up more space if you want, like, you can come in here, I want to share your space. And so yes, with music too, I think that plays a big piece of mattering and that individual expression, and people getting a chance finally to use their voices again and connect with others again. I realized I did not answer your technology question earlier. I thought of that like 3 minutes later and was like, whoa. But I think technology only goes so far. And a lot of our students were like, I got to talk to my friends during the pandemic and didn't realize the transition back. But yeah, a lot of my job, especially music, is I think undervalued in our society, but it's a program. So when you come into a high school in North Carolina, you are told there are 16 classes that you have to take and pass to graduate and earn a North Carolina diploma, and then also some electives, would be nice, and you'll need those too. And those courses are probably exactly what we all remember. They're English classes, they're math classes, and science, and social studies, and we threw in a health and PE for good measure. And there's no requirement for arts or for music. And that hurts our programs, our arts programs. And you see that when students are signing up, I gotta take my maths and my sciences. And so a lot of my job is advocating for them to remember their individual self and what is your passion, and building these programs and not letting these programs disappear because someone decided that was not a requirement for graduation in a meeting somewhere.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so this is an open question. Anyone can answer. How have you seen music remove barriers? It can be in any context.
Well, y'all know y'all better shut me up, but I love talking about this stuff, y'all. So I am very happy to say at the Orange County Courthouse, we have a gallery up when you go in the courthouse, and it was combining photography and kids' experience, right, through art. Sophie and I have a nonprofit. It's called Grow Your World, and we just launched this program called Encounter. When I looked online, from my research, I'm not a researcher, okay? But from my research, there are no programs in the juvenile justice system that have foundational art principles. You have the Art Therapy Institute. However, what Encounter does, tomorrow we're talking to the people who are in control, to have kids come through our program, and they will receive community service hours for doing music. They will receive community service hours for writing a song, playing an instrument. They will receive community service hours, for doing anything, painting a picture. I don't care what form of art it is. We're just launching this program, and I will tell you that already we have kids who graduated and who wanted to come back into the program, and it has been a phenomenal thing for me to see as someone who grew up not necessarily being a singer, to see how these kids are really transforming themselves internally. And going back to that mattering, I think we all want to feel like we belong. Like, what I realize is it doesn't matter how old you get or how young you are. And I do work in the men's prison, and what I see is their choices have been made from unaddressed trauma. It's not given permission to cry, to scream, to yell. With all of these things that we embody, and if you hold those in, it's like getting constipated, but emotionally constipated. Is that a thing, Doc? Yeah, like, take a laxative, cry sometime, people. If something's sad, we gotta cry, And I say that because this program, they're changing my life as much as they think I'm changing theirs, you know, and this has been a way that I think it's great, you know, the kids, they're making them go to the homeless shelter and go and feed people who are poor, and I'm like, what message are we sending if that's the only time kids go? So part of our program, they're gonna do those things as well, and you're gonna pick up something, because the beautiful thing about art is no matter what happens, no one can take that from me. You can't always go feed the homeless. You can't always go feed the poor. But if you got your guitar, you can always play. You don't need technology for any of that. You have your voice. And so I believe that we all find this inner sanctuary of how we belong when we find that peace within ourselves. And to me, that is using your voice, your hands, your instrument, and whatever you call your music.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to take a stab at that question? No?
Soteria,
Oh,
that really just like speaks to my heart. I just want to like add a little bit more of just, as you were talking, I think very visually. I remember so many stories of when people talk about their music and how they can take their storytelling rights back.
yeah.
And in a way, the most isolated person or people who are being labeled as withdrawn or antisocial or who are not fitting in any sort of the boxes that we set those expectations to be as a functioning adult. I think music gives people a chance to find that sense of belonging. And also, it's non-apologetically a way of expressing yourself and engaging every possible senses. So when, let's say that there are barriers there, and whether they are physical barriers or invisible barriers, I do believe, just as a person who has loved music all my life and is doing this work every single day, that when there is music, there is that invitation, opportunity, and so much potential to find the humanity within each other. And again, it's like from human to human, you're having a conversation, and music is a language of its own. And you can approach it from such curiosity, and there's so much like rich, interesting things happening to it. You could talk about artists, and I'm sure some of y'all had this like experience of like, maybe there's a song that you're just super into, and then you meet a stranger, and then they're listening to the same song, and then immediately you're just like, I could be friends with you. Let's talk more. Let's sit down. Let's like do something together. Or then talk about making music, and not necessarily even like playing a musical instrument, rhythm, that inner sense of beat. Or if you feel that sense of like something that is in synchronicity, or in communication, whether it's harmony or something that you're coming into the space of exploring this connection, I think the possibilities are endless. So even if there's barriers, it's not so much about the connection all the time. It's about when there's disconnection, you can come back to it again and again. And that openness isn't just a one-time thing. It can be trying it from all the different perspectives and see what opens up, and how can you be creative together.
You want to do a duet? We should do that too.
Absolutely.
Okay. Next show, the next event, we're going to do a duet. Yeah, there you go.
All right, so we're winding down. So there's some community questions I'm going to pose. So the first is, what types of instruments tend to be the most helpful to work with when working with a more anxious patient? Everybody's looking at Joyu.
Honestly, it depends on the person, because some people have always thought about playing the guitar and never like laid hands on it, and then maybe it is like playing the guitar, like putting your fingers on the strings and feeling the vibration. Or maybe for some people that the guitar might be like, especially some young kiddos, starting with a ukulele could be a really great way to bridge that connection. It really depends on the person. Some people really like the sound of piano, some people can't stand it. Some people make beats. And then I am really bad at making beats, but I'll bring GarageBand and ask the person, like, let's explore sound. So what is interesting to you? Because if the person is anxious, I can't read minds. I don't know why they're anxious or what makes them more anxious. It's about stimulation, about the person's perspective. So oftentimes, me as the therapist, you go into a space and you introduce people, like, it's not when we start the conversation, right? It's like usually the first moment I step in. And it's usually a little bit more welcoming when I introduce myself as the music therapist. And so they're like, okay, it's a little bit more non-threatening because, yes, you're a therapist, but you do music. Maybe I can trust you. So, so in a way, it's truly just like, okay, if you feel anxious, let's explore. What are some sounds and feels and textures and different sensations that triggers this to become something that's more severe or more unbearable? And how can we build a sense of like tolerance together, or build or expand your comfort zone, so to say, in sound? So I could easily say that for some people it's strings. For some people, they can't stand the sound of strings. They don't want to listen to any string instruments, so I would not bring the cello. However, it's really just like, okay, give me some examples of what artists, what music, what are some samples. So it's almost like a taste testing. Yeah. So you can, and people might notice that as they are going through recovery, their music taste can shift. And music that used to be really helpful to them, they can outgrow their music. And so that is also something to be curious about.
Excellent. All right, so briefly.
Yes.
Really briefly.
He's talking to me.
Can each of you share how to start your journey towards mental health? Briefly. 40 seconds each. Flavio.
I think, we're all looking for meaning and creating meaning, and that's where you encounter mental health. I mean, my journey has been convoluted to arrive at that point, but I think it's a point of profound insight that we come across. So I think the question is, how can you not fall into this and think about this? That's my short answer.
Thank you.
I used to be a person that would move from bad to good, from a bad thing to a good thing, and I think we all have that habit. And I realized that I can be in a good place in my life and go to a great place, and I can be in a great place and go to a greater place. And for me, part of that healing is always being connected to a therapist, to music, to a healthy community, because once no one, I don't think we've ever arrived. I think the beauty in arriving is continuing to arrive.
So you said 40 minutes, right?
That's for the next session.
I think along with the baby steps, also there's a real push of like negative feelings are bad, anxiety is bad, being uncomfortable, and that is, I think especially in my daily work, like a huge thing, that just taking that moment to say it is not, like everything that I feel is a part of me, and it is not bad to be afraid, it's not bad to be anxious, it's, there's a use of that emotion, and my body is trying to tell me something, my brain is trying to tell me something. So I think along with the baby steps is kind of that self-acceptance piece, and trying to just take that step back every now and then to say, why am I feeling this way? What does that tell me? And if I don't like how I'm feeling, who can I reach out to, or what is that one next step that I can do to make a small change?
Excellent.
Connecting to what everybody has said, I would say curiosity. As when you were a kid, once upon a time, maybe we were more curious of trying things and learning things and exploring things. And I remember, because I'm Taiwanese, I lived in Japan, I grew up here in the US, there's a lot of like differences in all of these different cultures. What could be acceptable in Japan or in Taiwan may not be really encouraged here in the US and vice versa. So what is right and what is wrong? Sometimes in mental health is not that black and white or all or nothing. It's about gauging all the nuances. And if we don't approach it from a curiosity point of view, and I have clients that ask me, well, I'm skeptical, is that okay? Like skepticism is also, that means you're not 100% sure. So this is not definite. We want answers. But it's about that process and trusting that your process of being curious can always open up more information for you to declutter and try to find a little bit more clarity for yourself.
Excellent. Well, we want to thank our panel tonight. And this is a special portion of the show where we have a performance by Soteria.
You're not getting rid of me yet. Well, can y'all hear me? I'm sure they told me that they was gonna need a second. So I'm so grateful. Thank you so much, Kelly, for inviting me to be here. Thank you, Nikki. Thank you. Where's Katie? Katie got me popcorn. God bless you. I love popcorn. So I wouldn't be me if I was not being unconventional. I want to thank my mother-in-law, my wife. I feel like is this the Emmys? Maddie, all my friends. We're all friends, by the way. Y'all give it up for Ivory. This is my big brother. When you're learning Black culture, we're all family. My mother-in-law, bless her, she's like, how many mamas she got? I'm like, it just keeps happening. So a few things. We are going to have a special concert that I want to invite you all to. It has not happened yet, and my dear friend Karen is going to be having a concert at our coffee shop. Karen, come on up real quick. And while Karen is coming up, Ivory's going to start playing. And Katie, would you go get me the lyrics? What was that instrument? Violin? Will you go give me that? So Karen's going to give just like a line or two from some of her music, which has been very inspiring. And I don't know if she's going to be my friend after this or not because it's not planned. But Ivory plays by ear. So we are for hire, people. We will go wherever you want us. We travel. Clap for that. These people will go too. They will go. So Karen's going to give us a couple of lyrics, and then we'll do something fun together.
This is a nice surprise. Thanks, Soteria. My husband's laughing. So Soteria and I are actually working on something together. And this is a song that I often sing when I need to breathe and center myself. It is an old hymn that I've sort of turned on its head, and I'm looking forward to collaborating with one of my very favorite artists. I am Soteria. And friends. And it goes like this, I guess. When the world is cold and lonely, and I cannot find my way, and the bitter winds of winter start to blow, Lord, let me be a beacon to shine sunlight on the day. So when I lay me down, this I know, and it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. Thank you.
Okay, so that was dope, right? I know her. She's my friend, people. Okay, so what I do is I get paid to basically remind you how awesome you are. And so I'm going to take some of the lyrics from this. I think I love the carry on, I am a champion. Can someone else just give me a line of something that somebody tells you to encourage you? You got this. You are, oh, come on, big words. You are infinite. How many syllables? All right, you got this. You are infinite. Really, Katie? The world is your oyster. Only because you got me popcorn.
You got this, you got this, you got this. The very world is your oyster. You are infinite. So carry on, carry on. I am a champion. You are a champion too. No matter what we've been through. Yeah, yeah. How was that? Okay. So I want to show you the power of music real quick. So, no music, but so there's this, I know. He's so great. Like, he just lets me boss him around. It's so great. But don't you try it. I'll go off. So one of my godmoms always, one of the 18, Mama J, always says, like, it won't always be like this. So I want to show you the power of just adding music and song to something in your own voice. And what I do is you take your story and give it to me and we can record together. But everything is a lyric. Every single thing is a lyric. Every conversation can be a lyric. Because a lyric, you just add music and it's a song, right? And I want to leave you with this. I want you to think about how it sounds when someone's like, it won't always be like this. You know, it won't always be like, and that sounds good, but the power of singing it, and I want you to think about somebody who really needs to be reminded that things, they get better, they get easier. And so this is a song that always heals me no matter what space I'm in. It won't always be like this. Love will perfect things concerning you. Sooner or later, it'll turn in your favor. It's turning around for you. No, 'cause it won't always feel like this. Love will perfect things concerning you. Sooner, not later, it'll turn in your favor. Yeah. It's turning around for you and me too. This here temple is a mere illusion of imperfection. Perfected by perfection, I've been purged and ordained by God's blessing. Named and renamed by the blessed, this here temple. This here testimony is not just a blessing, for if God was a priest, this here testimony would be my confession. I had a dream, and in my dream, I had acquired the very thing that I had desired. And just like a flame in an open room, my heart caught on fire and my soul sang. My soul sang higher than the sopranos in the choir. And no longer did I have to conspire. I said, how could you love? How could you love somebody like me? Love said, baby girl, let me trust and believe. So immediately, for my own soul, I began to intercede. And I said, it won't always be like this. Love will perfect things concerning me. Oh, sooner not later, it'll turn in my favor. It's turning around for me. Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the conclusion. This is the conclusion of Music and Mental Health. We want to thank all of our amazing sponsors. We want to thank our amazing executive director. We want to thank Nikki for putting such an amazing event together. We want to thank all of our panelists. Katie, we want to thank you. And everybody, have a good night.
Yeah.